July 27, 1898. Marching bands lead 40,000 people to the highest point in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota. Columns of veterans, stonecutters, and other workers march to the ribbon-draped speakers stand. Here the new Capitol is rising from the ground. Onlookers lean over the partially finished first-floor walls. Among the throng of dignitaries is Minnesota's first territorial governor, Alexander Ramsey, to officially lay the cornerstone for the People's House, the grandest building in the state, and one of the finest state house buildings in the country. The cornerstone is 5 feet long with a hollow core to hold a copper box. Into the box are placed more than 45 books, newspapers, photos, and documents, including histories of legislators and soldiers since the founding of the state. The name of the Capitol commissioners and architect Cass Gilbert, as well as his associates, are etched on a bronze plate. But the box contains not a single name of a worker or contractor who erected this structure. Since construction began in 1896, hundreds of workers have already been drawn to this spot, dug and laid the foundation and built the lower walls. Hundreds more will come to work here through the building's completion in 1907. For some, it is the spark for long, successful careers and the beginning of generations in Minnesota. For others, it's one stop of many in a wandering artisan's life. For others, it will mark the end of their lives. These people all came together to create this Minnesota icon, but they have remained nameless until now. This is their story.
Workers left their own time capsules to mark their work on the Capitol. At the base of the finial, supporting the 223-foot-high rotunda ball, 3 people gathered, exactly 110 years after the day that a mysterious and intriguing message was left there.
I was involved in the restoration of the state capitol's finial and copper roof, and during the selective demolition of the original copper roof, we were fortunate enough that the sheet metal workers that we were working with took it upon themselves to save this small cleat that supports one of the original copper shingles that was up on the roof.
O.C. Mankey, August 10, 1902. The etched clue sent historian Dave Reilly on a search through city directories, payroll accounts, death certificates, and cemetery records to discover that O.C. was Otto Mankey.
I looked for a death record on him, and he lived a long time, into the 40s, and from there went to the newspapers and finally get to an obituary where some living people are listed as survivors, including Michelle. So this is your grandfather's signature. He sent a message to you.
Having my great-grandfather, be so involved in this project. It's very emotional. Actually seeing the handwriting, because it was something I would have never have seen before, and just to put myself in that same position, standing here, I'm sure that he would have never guessed 110 years later that I'd be standing here. Maybe it was a call for us to know the history of this building, both the past and its current, and what the future can mean for this building. From what I've pieced together, he was about 34 years old when he was up here, and then of course a couple years, maybe 10 years older when he actually worked on the cathedral, so I can't imagine.
The vast majority of those who worked on the new Capitol came from outside the state, and like Otto, most of them were immigrants or children of immigrants from abroad.
He was born here in St. Paul. His father came over here. My great-great-grandmother, she talks about the 4-week journey across the Atlantic.
The Mankeys fled their homeland of Pomerania. The Rachats family too left conflict in their country, Bohemia, now the Czech Republic.
When you consider how bad things must have been for them to haul up stakes and everything they owned and come to a completely foreign country in 1863, it must have been pretty terrible. He was 14 years old, and he came with his parents from a very small village in Bohemia. He was a really fine finishing carpenter. We knew that. We knew that he did all the fine finishing work in the James J. Hill mansion here in St. Paul. That was my mother's understanding. She always told us that he was the head carpenter at the state capitol building during its construction and afterwards as well.
Fleeing the wars on one continent, the Rahatz family encountered the Civil War on another.
They entered in Philadelphia on a train. They sat in the Philadelphia station for 3 or 4 days in the first week of July in 1863. Their travels to this area were delayed because of the Battle of Gettysburg. And there we are in the governor's suite looking at these panels. We know he worked on some of the finishing work in that governor's suite, and all over it is these massive paintings of the Battle of Gettysburg. And it's the full circle sort of experience here is almost beyond comprehension. I wonder if he ever knew that there were going to be paintings up there of the Battle of Gettysburg.
While many tradespeople had already come to St. Paul when work began on the Capitol, others were recruited to work on the construction.
The general contractor had been in the South and had observed the work that black artisans were able to do. And so he contacted Cassaville Bullard, who was a mason extraordinaire, and he made him a general foreman.
My grandfather, Cassaville Bullard, was a brick mason as well as a stone cutter, as well as a carpenter, which was kind of rare. He had 10 children in Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, and because of that skill and because of housing discrimination at that time, segregation, racism, and really couldn't find opportunities to work, or if he did find work, it was more in the poorer neighborhoods and maybe not the best opportunity to feed his large family. So through some different connections, people heard of his skill and they were asked him to come here. And so he came here in 1898 and started working on the Capitol.
The general contractor sent Cassaville out to find African American or black masons, and around 20 of them came up here, including my grandfather. And Cassaville Bullard said, whoever I bring on this job has to perform at a certain level. His house is still standing. That's the kind of quality that he demanded of the people who worked for him. I believe my grandfather had that quality, and they formed a friendship that, as far as I know, lasted throughout both of their lives.
Hoist operator Zebulon Olsen was one of many Swedes who left poverty at home and immigrated in a second Great Migration to American cities.
Our grandmother was a historian, and this is one of her notes, and it says that we have a marble egg made by Grandpa Zebulon Olsen when he set all the stones in building the Minnesota State Capitol building. It's the same marble as in the structure.
This is the egg, and Grandma Olsen had this on the buffet. He took a chip from the construction process and put it in his pocket and made the egg later.
The egg is the thing that, when you have a memento or
this
something.
Is the connection.
That has a story that goes with it, and someone keeps telling the story generation after generation, then.
This is shared history. There is a connection to the state capitol, and it is strong, and it keeps us here.
Yeah, the roots go deep.